Hey everyone, thanks for joining me for another Startup Corner podcast where we have interesting talks with startup founders and entrepreneurs from the SaaS ecosphere. Today I'm joined by James, the creator of GoSquared, the decade-long brand with a rich history. Hi James, it's an absolute pleasure to have you on this podcast. Thank you so much for joining.
Yeah, it's great to be here. Thank you. An honor to be here. Thank you. And decade long, God, that does sound like a long time, doesn't
it? You can use that. But I was thinking about it. So okay, this is a decade long. It feels like a startup to me. So yeah, decade-long startup. That's brilliant. I don't know if you actually seen some of my recent videos on the Startup Corner where I actually talk about Jigsaw and the fact that we want to be a forever startup. So we're only 4 years old. So I'm looking forward for that decade-long startup title like you have. Yeah, so I know you have a very interesting and rich history and with your company GoSquared. But before we get into that, tell me a bit about yourself. How did you get into tech?
Gosh, yeah. Well, yeah. Thank you again for inviting me on, Vera. It's an honor. I feel very humbled to be asked on. And huge fan of what you're doing, by the way. I'm so impressed with how amazingly creative you are. You get so many pieces of content out. It's just so impressive. A bit about me. I'm James. Been running GoSquared for a while with two co-founders who I used to go to school together with when I was my teens, when I was a teenager. And so background before getting into tech. I mean, I wasn't that old before I got into tech, but I don't know. Back then, I was just a kid, and before running a company, it's not something that all kids do. I think is very uncool. But I knew from an early age I loved being creative, and I had always been brought up with amazing parents who made me believe that I didn't necessarily need to go out and get a job someday, but could actually start something and build a business myself. And so I from an early age, in my early teenage years, I felt if I could find a way of being creative and building a business, then that would be great. And fortunately, as I was going through school, one of the things actually, it was weird, when we were at school, we were never really taught computers, and computers were always this thing you did work on. Spreadsheets, documents, PowerPoint presentations, they were work things, never really considered creative. And it was only through, there was an award scheme called the Duke of Edinburgh Award, which encouraged you to pick up a new skill. And for me, being a geek, I wanted to learn how to build a website. So I started doing that and messed about with some friends, building websites of various sorts. And that was how I got into building things. And it made me realize, anyone can start a business online, even a teenager, in the 2000, mid 2000s, late 2000s. And you don't need millions of pounds. You don't need to be a big corporate business. You could be some kids. And it was when we saw a website called the $1 Million Homepage that really inspired us to get together and start GoSquared. And long story short, this website, $1 Million Homepage, made a guy $1 million, but it looked awful, and we thought we could build a better version of that. And so it was just this idea that we kind of tried to do better, and naively got into building software and tech, and that's kind of just continued to this day.
That's impressive. And when was it? When did you get into the courses for learning how to build a website, and what year was this?
I mean, like, honestly, it's such a different time to now, so it's like so super irrelevant, I guess, to most people out there today. Like, but you know, at the time, honestly, it wasn't even like online. I remember buying magazines and learning how to use tools like Adobe Illustrator, and at the time there was a tool called Dreamweaver. Don't know if that still exists. Maybe it does, but for building websites.
Yes. That was my first tool. That's what I was asking as well, because I think we kind of learned coding in the same era of Dreamweaver.
Exactly. I just got such a kick out of the idea that you could do some stuff on this computer here locally, and then it could be seen by people all around the world. It was just incredible that you could impact people instantly. And God, I probably sound like an old granddad saying that now, but like, it was just magical, I felt. And I was fortunate enough to start talking to friends at school who were much better at the coding and engineering side than I could ever be. I've never really been a coder. I've always been more of a designer, businessy side of me. I've never known how to actually write code. So I bumped into people at school that JT and Jeff, who are both very good friends of mine. And we just started like figuring out how to build stuff. And it was just we all got a kick out of building, and that was what got us together. Yeah.
I think also, I think that still stands. You say, oh, it sounds like an old man and such, but I think every single engineer, coder, techpreneur, whatever you want to classify our group of type of people, start because of that discovery, that discovery phase of, oh man, I can create things on my own. I can create this artsy thing, this product, this useful thing, and actually publish it to the world and have others use it and solve problems and basically, praise it. It's almost like, like an artist creating a painting and putting it out there for the world to see it, but in the technology space, right? So I think that that wonder of creation is still pretty much why a lot of people get into engineering. Some get because of it's a big, trend, like a big industry right now. But I think a lot of the younger generation does it for, for that wonder of creation, to put it like that. I don't know if that makes sense.
Totally.
The other thing that I think is very important that you mentioned is a bit of in order to basically get into tech and create something for yourself, a business and so on, and not necessarily get a job and so on, is the upbringing. Because I think I have a very similar history. I actually started my first business when I was 17. Man. I wasn't allowed to open a company, but as soon as I was allowed, I opened my own company at 18. But I was already starting to do stuff since I was 17, and it was a lot driven by my parents growing up telling me that I don't need to do the same things and go through the same hardships that they did, and that I have a big brain and that I can do things and I can do things for my own and start my own thing. So that kind of gave me that thought of a bit of an independence and trying to and searching for ways for me to create my own path, independent from what the job trends were back then.
And I think increasingly over time I've I would say like one of those, there's a phrase I heard a while ago that's like you're the average of the 5 people you spend the most time around, and I kind of think like when I was a kid, I spent a lot of time with my parents, and then when I was at school, I'd spend a lot of time around people that were creative or ambitious, and I think that still remains true. Like and like what you're saying there, that sort of that upbringing, that nurturing, and that making you feel like you're not crazy by going off and doing your own thing is hugely critical to like the paths people choose to go on. I think And you know, if you're not surrounded by those people, then it does seem weird to do something like as crazy as starting a business.
Yeah, true. I actually had a bit of let's call it a split path from you mentioned that, you know, parents and then at school being surrounded by creative. I was a bit the opposite at school. So I did had this upbringing. My parents just promoted this entrepreneurial attitude in me from a very young age. But then when I started detaching a bit, you know, teenage years and so on, I had a bit of bad influence, and all of my friends wanted to, you know, party and drink and do crazy stuff. But for some reason, I was always just mesmerized and attracted by the computer. I used to have like very, you know, early on cheap computers that I bought with money that I made from, you know, I was doing a job. I was in a warehouse and basically moving boxes of shoes, and I made a bit of money and I got myself a computer, and my friends were all outside, you know, playing ball and going to the clubs at one point. And I was spending my nights on the computer trying various things, and I was so mesmerized by it. So yeah, I think I think the early days are very important. And I think when you grow up, and colleagues and friends can massively influence, but if you have that seed of curiosity and exploration from early days, I think that kind of like overtakes any other type of influence that might be, you know, derailing you from that purpose.
Yeah, absolutely.
So you've been in business for 14 years. Let's get to the topic, okay? GoSquared. You told me how GoSquared got started, which was inspiration from this page, and I think I remember that because it was in the news quite a lot. That page where it was selling real estate, pixel real estate. Is that what you're referring to?
Yeah. The $1 Million Homepage was a site called. I think built by Alex Tu, who I think went on to start Cart. So really entrepreneurial person, and you know, essentially the idea of that site, it was so simple. Like, you got a grid of 1,000 pixels by 1,000 pixels, and each one was sold for $1 each. So he made a lot of headlines by selling all of those pixels, and I think he used it to fund himself through college and then some, I would imagine. But you know, I was captivated by that idea because it was like, you know, it's so simple and
stupid. Initially,
stupid to get $1 million, you know. And I also thought, bloody hell, that is an ugly website. Like, look at how awful that looks. And I thought, and you know, my dad had always worked in the field of advertising, and so I'd always been brought up with this appreciation of ads, and ads being creative and artistic and actually a form of art in a way, rather than a horrible gimmicky neon bright light. And so I felt like maybe like there's an opportunity to build like a premium version of the $1 Million Homepage, and alas, I realized that's very hard when you don't know anyone, you do no PR, you don't drive people to the site, and you know nothing about anything. And so it was a really, I think my you know, first realization of how hard it actually can be to build a business really hit me quite young, because I had all these dreams of like, oh my god, if we can sell these ads for more than like $1, then we'll be millionaires every month, and we'll be only like,
you make two million instead of one.
And what I failed to realize was that the $1 Million Homepage wasn't necessarily successful because of its you know, HTML and CSS. It was just a great idea, but clearly a lot of work went into getting awareness of it and getting it into the press and getting into the media and getting people to know about it and making it an era-defining kind of site. And so, you know, that was all stuff I learned, you know, and we learned the hard way. You know, we made many, you know, whole career has been a series of mistakes that you learn from, and you hopefully don't make the same ones twice or 3 times.
Yeah, I remember that. So that's, as I mentioned, I remember that website, and I remember thinking, man, why didn't I have this idea? But then immediately I thought, surely this wouldn't work again. So, and that's what kept me from building my own version of that. But it seems like you're very determined to make something better than that page. So well done to you for taking the step. I was like, no, this is not going to work again.
Totally. I actually think that's an interesting point, though. Like, I think often people underrate naivety, and I think sometimes you can be too, I don't know if it's the right way of phrasing it to say too knowledgeable, but I think sometimes you can build up so much of a view of a space or an industry or a market or anything, and feel you understand it fully, and almost eradicate or any visibility into opportunities, and I think sometimes naivety is that perfect sort of combining or catalyst to help with getting something started and getting something off the ground, because so many people talk and dream about great ideas, but very few things I think would ever get started if you tried to wait for all of the facts and information to be present in your mind. And I think there's always a healthy amount of naivety to have, actually. And you know, okay, sure, starting to build a competing $1 million homepage didn't itself work out, but we would never have gone on to do the other things that we went on to do. And so you know, naivety and then learning through doing, I think, is a really good recipe for just making progress and ultimately getting to some form of success.
Oh yes, 100%. And I mean, there's been, so I was actually watching a documentary recently about Yo. Have you heard of this Yo app? It was the simplest
or something.
You can send a yo to a friend, and again, a massive early success, got investment, and so on. It eventually went down under. That page, the 1 pixel page, went down under, and I think eventually, I think simple gimmicky ideas that stay simple gimmicky ideas do not succeed. Like, you have to evolve and build that into a business somehow, right, in order to succeed, right? So that's why, you know, it's like with memes come and go, you know, they're not always the same. And it's the same with, like, people get bored of the same gimmicky idea, to put it like that, unless you can build a business and to continue to capture the user's attention, then, you know, eventually you're gonna die down. And I think that's one of the things that GoSquared has done quite well over these years. And I kind of want to emphasize, you know, 14 years, that's impressive, right? In a world of, you know, building and selling fast, I'm wondering, how do you manage to stay focused on your product, Craft? Give us your secrets.
I'm not sure I have any secrets, Biro, but I can talk through how I think about it anyway. You know, I think everyone's got their own way of building a company, and there's no one way to do it, and then there's a lot of wrong ways, I guess, but there's no one path. And we've just so happened to take ourselves on the path that we've been on, which has been, I would say, I look at GoSquared not really as one company as such. It's been so many things over the years, and it's almost been just an extension of the people that have started it and built it over time. And we've gone through so many cycles and iterations, and I think it would be perfectly fine for literally you can everything we've done and give it to a different team, and they would have run maybe 10, 15 different companies in that time. And each of them, some of them would have worked, some of them wouldn't. And I think that's kind of how I look at it. Like we've made bets and tried things out over many years, and iteratively got to where we are today, which is helping small businesses grow online and working, especially in the customer engagement space, helping with highly targeted, focused messaging. And I look at that, and I don't think we would be there doing things that, like, I think we're helping hundreds of customers communicate with millions and tens of millions, hundreds of millions of their customers. I view that as hugely, like, we have this huge responsibility for what we're doing there. I feel like we have huge impact ultimately there. But we wouldn't be doing that if we hadn't done some of these things early on, like building some of the blocks along the way. And so, there's pros and cons of like starting things and shutting them down, or starting things and keeping them running. And some of the benefits we've accrued over time has been, as you mentioned earlier, like a lot of people, I guess, know about GoSquared, or they know about the people behind it. We have like incredible reputation on things like Google. Like we can write a post about most things and it will kind of rank well because we've got so much authority there. We've got customers that will speak nice things about us. We've got employees or ex-employees who will say nice things about us to people we might want to hire. Like, so there's a lot of so many angles where like there's benefits, but then there's also trade-offs and there's downsides. There's a lot of legacy. There's a lot of people coming to us today that thought we still were doing what we were doing maybe 6 years ago, or we've still got lots of old content on the blog that drives us irrelevant traffic, and we've got code in our code base that probably is a little bit older than we would like. And so there's all of these things to balance, and I feel at a higher level, like generally everything in life, especially in business, is a trade-off. And we've chosen to make these trade-offs so far that have gotten us to where we are. And it's not that we necessarily set out trying to build a 14, 15-year-old company. We just set out trying to build good stuff for customers, for the world, and putting something new into the world, and trying to make some money doing that along the way, and having fun along the way. And that's been our goal all along. And if we ever stop doing that, then maybe that's when we'd stop doing GoSquared. But that's been our goal, rather than necessarily take it to the moon or flip it as fast as we possibly can.
So you mentioned building authority, brand trust, and your website, your domain is extremely SEO friendly, Google friendly, and so on, which I suppose are some of the reasons why you kept the GoSquared brand and company along the way. But you did have to reinvent GoSquared more than once, from the selling pixels, selling adverts business, to analytics, to what it is today, which is a suite of tools to help businesses and so on. Are there any other reasons that kept you from not starting fresh? Let's say, okay, we're finished with the adverts business. Let's rebrand. Let's start from fresh, from square one, a business. Let's say on analytics, right? Was it? What are some of the reasons why GoSquared has survived as a company, as a brand, and so on?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think we've toyed with this a lot in the past, and I think actually, like, even more recently, like having sort of sub brands in a way. I think we've always enjoyed working on multiple things. And I think there's always been this balance in my mind. And again, I caveat this, by the way, with saying it's not necessarily good advice. I just saying what we've done at times. But I think we've always enjoyed being able to do multiple things and viewed opportunity in having kind of multiple things on the go at the same time. And with that, I've always had this debate of like, is it better to build one brand at the top and that to be the central thing and everything kind of branches off that? Or is it better to build separate, isolated brands that maybe don't benefit so much from each other? And to this day, mostly we've found that building that one brand, and everything kind of accrues up to that, and then kind of everything feeds off of that as well. Has been the most versatile thing, and there's aspects of simplicity there. You know, one team, one dream, but like also one shared code base, all of these things. And like from my perspective, I've always, one of my like North Stars generally in life has been to try and simplify things, and trying to simplify things as much as they possibly can be simplified. And I like finding, like, running multiple actual legal entities and companies and dealing with how that works with different tools and teams, setups. Like, there's a lot of divergence that can occur with that, and so we've preferred to keep everything in-house and under one roof, and tried to keep simplicity that way. But I'll admit, like, there's a lot of thought we've given actually to we've actually got some great brand names like under the hood. Like, when we released our live analytics tool, it was originally called Live Stats. And that was a pretty cool name, and we debated for a lot whether or not to call it GoSquared Analytics or Live Stats, and so that's something that may rear its head again in the future. Who knows? But yeah, also, like, we ran our blog used to be called the GoSquared blog used to be called Liquidicity, which was a brand name we came up at school, and no one could spell it, type it. Like, everyone called it different names.
Liquid City.
No one knew it was really related to GoSquared, and so like, there's pros and cons to all these things, and for the most part, we've tried to accrue everything up to GoSquared. And I look at companies like I mean, have you heard of Apple and companies like that, where they like, everything spawns off of that top brand name, like Apple, Nike, Google. Like, they don't have so many sub brands. Like, it's hard enough to build one brand, let alone multiple. So that's been our thinking. But each to their own.
We've kind of debated as well when we started Jigsaw, whether, because we have currently 3 apps on the Atlassian marketplace, and we debated whether to call them, Jigsaw something, Jigsaw roadmap, Jigsaw prioritization, and so on, or to go with kind of like mini sub brands of their own. So we went with the mini sub brands. It has its challenges, it has also its benefits, but I mean, we went the hard way with absolutely everything, because today, apart from all of the apps having their own sub brands, and Jigsaw being Jigsaw, the company that a lot of people follow and engage with, us having a bit of our personal brands as well, especially me on social media and YouTube and such, then we have a lot of other series, video series and so on, that are called differently, so it's kind of widespread. The idea is that it's all under Jigsaw. There are no other entities, there's no complications around that, but fundamentally there are different things, and they're a bit independent from each other when it comes to taking decisions and how we decide what comes next in terms of content, in terms of features on the applications and such. But yeah, again, like, each with its own. The idea is, the path that that you take is the one that makes the most sense for you. Thinking back, I would probably say maybe it would have been more straightforward if everything was jigsaw this, jigsaw that. Maybe it would have also given us a bit more, let's say, brand establishment and authority out of the gate if everything was jigsaw does this. But yeah, we'll see. At the moment, it's a benefit and a curse at the same time.
There's no right answers. Again, it's like you see this a lot when companies are acquired as well, whether or not the parent company sticks with the brand of the company they're acquiring or rebrands it. And I think you look at like Twilio, who acquired Segment, and it's like called Twilio Segment or Segment by Twilio, and you're like sort of thinking they're gradually going to like remove letters from the Segment name and call it like whatever they actually want to call it, like Twilio Data Hub or something. It's a tricky one. I think everyone struggles with it, and it's also just notoriously hard to categorically measure and definitively answer whether the brand is like strong enough to warrant those decisions or not. Like, there's these decisions. I think often the mistake is hoping that you'll find some data to prove what you should do or not. And I just totally don't believe you can really do that. You have to make a decision based on your best understanding of the industry and the market and where you're at and what's going to be best, and do it and see what happens.
No, I agree. I think for us it's probably also having these a bit detached brands. It also depends on where you're heading and what you see the future like for the company. Like for us, for example, it's very important we build strong brands, even individual brands, because there is acquisition potential. There is acquisition potential at Jigsaw, the entire organization level, but there's also acquisition potential on each individual initiative and brand. And if that initiative has a strong brand, then the offers are also better. And I think that's the other thing with the reason why we see with companies being acquired and see Segment by Twilio is because rather than other companies just being now the data pipeline of this company and so on, I think it's probably brand establishment, because people buy brand as well. That's a very real thing. I buy Elgato. I don't know if you've seen I've published a video recently about all of my setups, for how I film these, and I mentioned I'm a big fan of the Elgato brand for streaming and such, and that's the reality of it. Like, people love Segment and they love the brand and they and what it stands for. So probably it will be harder for Twilio to say, oh well, let's rebrand the whole Segment chunk, unless they know they have a lot of buy-in from the customer and audience, put it like that. Right. So I went through your timeline on the website just to go through the history, and you have some really yes. What did you do in 2012 at our this? You really have some notable achievements over there. So I know it's probably hard, but what would you say is your biggest so far?
Oh gosh. That's tricky to narrow down. I mean, there's been a few things that have been pretty exciting there's been many things that have been exciting over the years. There's been, in at least in the early days of the tech scene in London, there weren't that many people doing much in the tech scene. So there was a lot of attention in the sector. So we've had the Prime Minister visit the office and stuff like that in the past, which was pretty cool. But whatever you think of the Prime Minister, but then we
depends which one.
I won't name names. but then from a more sort of achievement side of things, I think a lot of the things I'm more proud of have been like the quiet things that like when we've won certain customers, or when certain team members have done like amazing things. I guess a few specific things. I know we've one of Amazon Web Services events they hosted. Jeff, our CTO, was on stage, invited on stage there to talk about our tech and how we use AWS to essentially run GoSquared, and that was a huge honor to be introduced by the CTO of Amazon, introducing the CTO of GoSquared. Was kind of cool.
Yeah.
Felt very good then. We, our like another aspect of building our SaaS platform that is used by businesses, but people put it on their website. They use our analytics on their website, they use our live chat on their website. So we've been on some pretty huge sites in the past. I think notably the Grammys one year was probably one of our records for traffic volume, and we had, I think, like Justin Bieber tweeting out, and it's like these kinds of things that like have huge huge impact, and that people trust us to provide services in those scenarios. It's really rewarding. But yeah, I don't know, I think honestly a lot of my prouder things are around like what we've done with the company, and a lot of the things we've even done internally, like to build an environment where people love working, touch wood, as far as I'm aware, and when I talk to them they seem to, and having a culture that's very respectful, very supportive, very feedback focused, and really trying to build a company that we ourselves enjoy working at, and so I feel like that's a big part of it too, which is sort of maybe the softer side, the less specific moment in time, but I think those things come from compounding work over time.
And also you're talking about clients and people that use the services. Yeah, I'm the same. Nikki and I, when we see a customer, a big name customer, this company started using this Foxley or so on. Yeah, that's so impressive. I feel it just makes you feel like you're helping some large companies achieve big things. And yeah, I also had and this is something that not a lot of people know. Ages ago, I built a share this competitor.
Oh, really?
Add this and share this, the social media widgets. This was back in 2000, probably 13 or something like that, and it was actually a WordPress plugin, and it was completely free. And it got probably 50,000 downloads until I discontinued it and such. And I wanted to build a business around that. It didn't really work out. It was one of those fail, learn from type of situations. But again, like I had at one point probably 10,000 websites that were using the widget in parallel. And some big names as well, some big news outlets, and yeah. So I can relate to what you're saying about just getting that exposure and getting that, because I had the logo on the widget, and other people will come and pick it up, and so that was pretty cool. But talking about failures, what's your biggest one? What would you say? A failure that hurt, but you also learned a lot from it.
There's been no failures at all, so I don't have any. No, there's been so many, it's just hard to.
Sure.
It's just a long series of failures that you learn from, So I kind of assume a lot of people listening to this would be maybe earlier on in their sort of startup journey, earlier on in their what they're up to, and I think we made a lot of mistakes on hiring and not being methodical enough, rigorous enough in who we brought onto the team. And I think we learned the hard way a lot around how how difficult it can be when you make the wrong hire, because that wrong hire can affect everyone else on the team, and that can be very dangerous. And then also, I think from a more strategic perspective, I think sometimes too much focus on competition can be very dangerous, and I think we've taken ourselves off paths on many occasions by sort of trying to keep up with the competition without spending enough time talking to our own customers and understanding their own needs. And I think there's a real balance to be struck there around truly building something your customers want and that the market wants, and being aware of competition, but not letting that awareness seep into becoming too much a force of nature that competes with the what your own customers are saying. And I think that's been something we've learned the hard way on several occasions. Yeah.
I can relate with both of those things, hiring the wrong people as well as focusing too. I'm such like, I sometimes spend a bit too much looking in the other person's garden, and I'm aware of that. I actually made a video recently just on this topic, on hiring for early startups, and how dangerous it can be for your survival if you hire the wrong people, or even if you hire extremely junior and interns when you don't have the means to support them. And hand holding and so on can be at the detriment of your focus, especially early on. Yes, juniors and interns have their place, but not at the point where your focus is in getting your business off the ground, and that's your only focus. I feel that that's when you need people that are kind of on your same wavelength and as entrepreneurish as you, to help you get the business and the company where it needs to get. I completely agree with that. I think that's one of the things that stifles growth in a lot of early startups, the hiring situation. And then with competitors, I agree as well. We all have different, as we mentioned earlier as well, we all have different minds, different ideas, and I think it's you can't look too much in the other person's garden and try to emulate, because you're you, to put it like that, and focus on your business. Right, I'm interested in this one, right? So over 14 years, marketing and sales techniques and trends have changed a lot, right? If you look at 14 years ago, social media and SEO optimization and so on is nothing like what is today. How do you stay trendy or trending?
How do you stay trendy? I think it's always adapting to change. What's that quote? Like, it's not the origin of the species. Like, you have to be responsive to change to survive. And I think for us, we've always believed strongly in like owned channels. So we've always, from the early days, we've primarily due to constraints like being young with no budget. Like, we didn't really build a business that relied on paid media and paid ads. We just started a blog and started writing about what we were up to, and that blog has continued to be our primary like marketing vehicle. And coupling that with a weekly newsletter, which we've been running for over 300 issues now, and so
wow.
We've had some of these really, and also we've on Twitter from a very early time as well, and so like we've had a few of these channels which we've sort of stuck to, and we tried not to get too distracted actually by, like, it's easy to get distracted by a lot of new trends, and sometimes it's hard to know whether something's gonna be the next Twitter or the next Yo. and so just trying to be as smart as possible and not over invest in a channel before it's like too proven out, and just trying to test those things out as methodically as possible. But I think we've always just tried to, honestly, on the content side, I've always just believed like that there's a lot of hacks and shortcuts that can be taken, but at the end of the day, if we consistently write good content that we ourselves would want to read and that we ourselves would find valuable, then that's not going to be a bad thing. And if we do that consistently over a long period of time, that will compound to giving us returns. And I think that's held true. And I think a lot of it as well stems from founding team being very product minded. Like, we care a lot about quality of interface, quality of design, quality of engineering. And I think if the company was in the hands of someone maybe more sales minded or pure marketing minded, that maybe that they would do things in a different way. They might grow the business more, but they might also have a different ethos about things. And like, we've just chosen to do things in the way that feels right to our values, and that's been the right thing to do to attract the audience we've attracted and win the customers we've attracted. And I think as well, like, we've always seen an opportunity to not divide growth and product too much, so that like the product itself is a huge opportunity for growth. With a code that sits on our customers' websites, we have our live chat product, which gains exposure to millions of people. We have our emailing, customer engagement tools, which again, we're sending emails to millions of people. So there's all of these opportunities where doing a good job on the product helps drive growth too. And I think, we just try and see through a lot of the fashions of the day and just try and build out the things that we feel are going to be strong for the long term, and that we feel we can do a good job on. Because we're not expert cold callers, we're not expert paid ad people. So we've always tried to do what we know, and maybe we outsource what we don't.
Well, same here. I was talking about cold calling. I don't know. I'm just terrified of that. I've avoided implementing any type of aged sales tactics in Jigsaw. I agree with you on I think the topic of having the tool having the product be a growth tool is very important. We're actually exploring that as well. Us being in the B2B space and selling products basically to businesses and such, that doesn't stick that well, to put it like that, because organizations are in closed environments. But we are exploring some new techniques for things like sandboxing and offering completely free, no strings attached type of solutions that could potentially give us that additional traffic and interest in the bigger tooling. And I'm also impressed with your blog, as well as congrats for your 300 issues of the newsletter. I think I need to get some advice from you, because we're just starting our newsletter at Jigsaw, so I probably can get some advice from you.
The only advice I'd give is, from issue 1, we spent ages trying to figure out the name, and we called it GoSquared Weekly. And it was very intentional, because we knew if we don't call it GoSquared Weekly, we will find an excuse to not do it on a given week. And if we stop doing it 1 week, we will probably stop doing it, full stop. And so by calling it GoSquared Weekly, we backed ourselves into a corner to do it every week. And that's so far been true for, I think, 310 issues now.
It's like, we can't, like, it's in our name, we can't not do it. No, that I acknowledge that. That's very important. We have Monday coffee with Jigsaw, and again, I think just having it in the name, the fact that it's Monday coffee, which kind of implies that it's every single Monday, kind of kept us to on one way, kept us to keep on doing the stream. So yeah, that's important. It's putting pressure on yourself is very important, and I think that has been true for me in so many other regards. Even the fact that I'm so silly that I pushed myself to buy a lot of and set up a lot of gear for video filming and such, and I have this pressure on myself now to create content, because otherwise why am I wasting all of this tooling for? So it really helps, putting that kind of pressure on yourself.
It's good to have an excuse to buy a new
just
microphone.
taking action. Yeah, exactly. So you've been through multiple investment rounds. Do you have any advice for new founders looking to get seed investment and funding? I know I have a few folk that are following the Startup Corner videos and such that are interested in getting funding. So I was wondering if you have any advice.
Yeah, I think you take it or leave it. But my advice would be, because I speak to quite a few founders early on in their careers as well. And a lot of them talk to me about raising money. And one of the first things I ask them though is actually like, what are you trying to do personally? Like, what is your goal personally? Because I think it's changing, I think, but like there's so much publicity around companies that raise money, and the very few that truly succeed at becoming acquired or public. But as soon as you raise money, you have other people to be accountable to answer to. You put yourself essentially on a path that has an ideal timeline. You put yourself on a path to giving a certain return. It starts to dictate the kind of business you want to run. And so I would just encourage anyone who is looking for a seed round or looking for a round to just do a bit of introspection and think, what kind of life do I want to lead, and what am I trying to achieve with my business endeavor? Because it's perfectly fine to say I want to build a business that is gonna give me a nice lifestyle, or it's gonna pay the salaries of like 3 or 4 people that I love working with, and we're gonna just build a really nice small company here. It's also perfectly fine to say we're gonna aim to take this to the moon, and we're gonna raise big time. We're in an incredibly competitive space, and we've got to move fast, otherwise we're gonna miss the boat. But also that the chances of that working out are also very different to the chances of you building a very nice self-sufficient business. And I think just evaluating those things deeply and not being too swayed by what the cool thing to do is, or what is popular on TechCrunch today, is just an important thing to be true to yourself on, I think, because there's no shame in any of those options, in my eyes.
I mean, you started by saying take it or leave it. I'm saying to anyone that's listening, take it, because I feel this is the number one advice that everyone needs to take on. It is important to understand why you're doing what you're doing and why you're getting funding. Why do you need funding? Is it because, like you said, you want to build a sustainable business, long-term business that gives you a nice lifestyle and so on? Or are you getting funding because you want to accelerate growth and you want to eventually IPO or sell and so on? These are very different paths, and based on what your story is or is going to be, you should look for funding options that suit you. Because VC is not for everyone, and maybe a loan is better for you. Maybe this other approach of funding yourself is better for you. So it really goes back to, what do you plan to do? How do you see the future of your business, of your company, and so on? And assess that, and only after that, look at options that fit, funding options that fit for you. And I think that's that's a take it 100% type of advice. All right, so before we close, this is a crazy, very useful, and I'm really happy to hear your thoughts on some of these things, because I think we share some of the same ideas, and I really want for people to out there that are starting a business to kind of look at some of these conversations as a kind of like, pick the information that you need, and hopefully it helps you with your business. But before we close off, I want to ask, where are you taking GoSquared next? Any exciting updates coming up?
Yeah, we've got some really exciting stuff happening between now and the new year. Our focus is really on delivering some very exciting features on the customer engagement side for our customers. So we really want to make GoSquared the best place for SaaS businesses to engage with their customers online through email and in-app messaging. And I think for the most part, that customer engagement for most businesses still is in a really dark place. It's really difficult, and we're just so focused on making it so much easier and effortless and better for both the business and the end user. And so we've got we're just really full steam ahead on making the platform better on that route, because it's such an exciting place to be impacting not just our customers directly, but the millions of end users and contacts and the audience that they have. And that's, I think, what excites me a lot when when you think, we can make all of those people have a better experience and get fewer rubbish, impersonal, spammy messages from the businesses they interact with. So I think, there's a lot of cool stuff we've got coming there, and stay tuned for more, I guess.
Well, definitely will. I'm actually in the looks for in-app chat messaging system, so I might talk to you about that. Yes, I might talk to you about that, because we're looking for something a bit more fine-tuned. Brilliant. James, thank you so much for doing this with me. It was a pleasure. It was a brilliant conversation. I feel like we have so many things to talk about that. I feel that this is not the only time that you're going to be on the Startup Corner podcast. I feel that you're gonna come back. I have follow-up questions. Okay.
Absolutely. I'm always happy to chat with you, Bira. No, thank you. It's been a pleasure, and congrats again on building an amazing business and a content empire. It seems is forming. So it's amazing to be part of it. Yeah.
It's not there yet, but we're getting there, hopefully. No, brilliant. Thank you everyone for watching this stream. If you have any questions for James about GoSquared, about his basically his path, his trajectory as an entrepreneur, do feel free to put them in the comments, and I also link the website so you can check out his services. Pretty sure from what it sounds like, the products are really good, but also there's some pretty cool updates coming soon. So yeah, check that out. All right, thank you so much. Bye bye.